The Fine Illini's season is officially over. Their championship dreams were shattered after losing to UConn by 9 points in last Saturday night's national championship semifinal. In baseball, the White Sox have done this a couple of times in recent years, but they haven't done this in a long time. They started off the season 3-0 at US. Ooh, why can't I say that corporate name? They starting off the season 3-0 at Sox Park. On the north side, the Cubs won their series against the Cleveland Guardians, but suffered some major setback news. In football, will the Bears ever sell that foolishness stadium wise with Arlington Heights and whoever else wants to join the fray in a bid for the Bears' new home? And we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday for you. Then the Hall of Morris, the Monday extravaganza starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Binnington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a catch. Gonzalez with the fade on the drive.
Ozzie motions left. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb Rose, middle of the field, Love catch. Breaks away the 30. Love 20. Love 10. Love end zone. Touchdown Bears!
To the Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports, the first show for the month of April. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she, yours truly. I am back. This is me. I am Sidney Brown, and you can follow yours truly on the Twitter X and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK8080.
You can follow McGee McGee on the Twitter, X, using the IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're not unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Again, we'll get the up on the screen for you. But decide to troll indoor, do something silly, dumb, or stupid. I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to build and boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment game. That's checking us out live in the living color at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto to talk about sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We invite you with some of the best around Second City Sports. We've got a loaded show. We got a lot to talk about. Today, of course, we'll preview the men's championship game between UConn and Michigan tonight. We'll also recap later on the women's championship game where UCLA pretty much dominated South Carolina to win their very first women's hoops championship. Other basketball championships were crowned over the weekend. The Bulls, their tankathon continues, but also there have been a lot of rumors about the Bulls lately. We'll talk about that. And also the rest of the week in NBA, including some big injury news to play a couple of top contenders in the West. And while one Western Conference team got one of their guys back. Excuse me. Also, of course, a little bit of Blackhawks news. They also are starting to wind down their season. They're out West, and they got a game tonight against San Jose. Also, NFL, the Bears, the Seiya situation. There's been another ultimatum from the Bears. We'll talk about that. And an all-pro defensive end could be on the move. We'll talk about that. And the Sky Trey Angel Reese, as we told you this last year, but I digress. We'll talk about that too later on. And a special edition of Old School TV Monday. I think you guys are gonna like this one as you usually do. But first, Sid, I'll let you take it from here. Your adventures over at I'll say the corporate name G-Rate over the weekend for the White Sox home opener against the Blue Jays, where the Sox did sweep the Blue Jays. Also, too, some big news. Ozzie Guillen will have his jersey retired. He got that news right after I went off. I know Sid heard the news when the news became official on Friday in that game. Well, I'll let Sid explain that to you guys, or what it was like when he got that news. So, Sid, take it from here, my friend.
Oh yeah, like I said, we'll get to nuts and bolts of baseball later on in the show. But yours surely was out last Friday. Of course, I had to attend the home opener for the 2026 White Sox, and of course, your surely was out in the baseball streets, as the kids would say, this past week. I went to Wrigley a couple of times to watch the Cubs home opening series against the Washington Nationals. They won that game, and of course, last Wednesday's game against the Angels. For the record, was the coldest game time temperature baseball game that I've ever attended. And some people said, you wonder why the prices were low? Oh, that's why, because of the bad weather. LaKeena, I know some people are going to complain. So, they should get a roof over these stadiums and domes. That's not happening. They should push the season to mid to late April. That's not going to happen either, because of the expansion of the playoff fields that we've been waiting to set over the last few years. But traveling to different stadiums and just having two teams in town is nice. To go to baseball games whenever you can afford them. But yours truly, unless the temperature is above 45, 50 degrees, I will not attend a game where the temperature was 39 degrees, like I did last Wednesday against the Cubs and the Anaheim Angels. Now, did I get my money's worth? Yes, but it was just a little bit too cold for your boy. And of course, this time last week on the show, I think the White Sox Twitter fan group, the guys and gals from Section 108, there was a road trip for Sox fans last Sunday in Milwaukee. We all know how that went as far as on the field, but experiencing followers and friends of yours making new friends on the bus trip to and from Milwaukee, that was a great experience. And there's some stadiums that yours truly would like to visit before yours truly checks out, thanks to Mother Nature. But just traveling, being excited that the new baseball season is here, going to these different venues. It gives a great appreciation for me. It gives a great appreciation, not just for sports, but for life as well. Experiencing new things and going to new venues. It gives a great appreciation for what we do.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, LaKeena, McGee, Steve Brown, with you guys here, talking about his adventures over at G-Rate over the weekend. And what is your dream sports trip, if you will? Whether it's you haven't been to a certain, if you're in a big city, you haven't been to a certain team, or if you just want to make a road trip to something. I know Sid's the season ticket over for the White Sox, so he gets to go to home games. About what's the deal with your thing about, like, what, 20?
I got 20 games? Yeah, I got a 20 game package.
Yeah, 20 game package every year. So you gotta, and also you get a little perks too, being a season ticket holder, so that also helps as well.
Yes, it does.
But yeah, like I said, I've said this before. We talked about it since we first met over at IMS, at the old State Street campus over at IMS. I've been to Bulls games, I've been to Cubs games, I've been to a Sox game. Never been to a Blackhawks game, so hopefully when they start getting good, maybe I will go to a Blackhawks game. Been to a couple, been to a couple of college games as well, but never, I never went to an Illini game or anything like that, or a DePaul game. So I'm it's one of those things where it's just like, that's kind of the dream trip. Now, my dream trip I would love to go is perhaps maybe go to a Ohio State Michigan game for football. I know I probably have to bundle up since it's like right before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving, depending on how the schedule is. I'd love to go to a North Carolina Duke game, either at Chapel Hill or in Durham. It doesn't really matter. Or even out west to UCLA, USC. You'll play one of those football games, just to kind of like play, see, maybe even watch a game at the Rose Bowl perhaps. So that's kind of like those are kind of like my dream sports trips, if you will. So that's sort of like my thing, but it's actually a really interesting experience, especially in the South. I would never go to the South, but I know they always say the SEC with the tailgating and stuff. I mean, that stuff really it's kind of like there's nothing else like that's what people always say. So
I think for me, I'll stick with college. Your expertise in college football. Georgia and Florida, the Florida Gators, the world largest outdoor cocktail party. I know they don't call it that anymore, but I like to experience that once. Of course, um, Michigan and Ohio State. I like to experience it, so that's on my bucket list. For college football as well. For baseball, of course, visiting Fenway Park. I like to experience at least one Yankees and Red Sox, one Yankees Red Sox game. Going to, I know it's not new, but the new Yankee Stadium for the Yankees. Of course, I like to play the White Sox while I'm there, but if they play the Red Sox, that's fine with me too. Of course, the Mets across the way in Queens at Citi Field experience a game in that ballpark. I like to go to Pittsburgh. Of course, I didn't get a chance to go with the guys and girls from Section 108 last year. Of course, they watched the White Sox in Pittsburgh the first weekend series following the All-Star break last year. I didn't get a chance to go, but our good friend Herb Lawrence, who I saw yesterday at the game. What up, Herb? Hope everything's well with you. I know he's been raving about PNC Park in Pittsburgh. That's that ballpark opened in 2001, and a lot of people, especially out of towners, like that ballpark. They rank as one of the best ballparks in the major league. So I like to experience one game in that ballpark. And out west, of course, I will still say Arizona to a lesser extent, but I really like to experience Dodger Stadium. I know they got a new name, but still people call it Dodger Stadium. Of course, I know the Dodgers are the defending world champions right now. I like to experience one game in Dodger Stadium. I know that they have one of the highest ticket prices in the league, but for me, just find me the cheapest seat. As long as I can see the field, I'm good. So that's my road trip as far as college football and baseball are concerned.
well, yeah, for baseball, like I said, we'd love to go to the new. I love to go to City Field too. I know they say that's a really nice ballpark as well. I've heard her rave about PNC Park. He's been right about that for years. The new-ish Yankee Stadium. Oh, Fenway Park, as we call it here. We'll love to go there since they've renovated it. Dodger Stadium. I know it gets very loud, even though it is super expensive. Arizona, I've heard a lot of great things about the D-backs ballpark. Also, of course, T-Mobile Park, where the Mariners play. I've heard a lot of great things about that ballpark. It's right in the middle of the Seattle downtown area, so everything's kind of like right there and within driving distance. So that's why people say that's one of the the most convenient one in baseball. So those are kind of like my part when it comes to baseball. Now, as far as the NFL is concerned. There's a lot of good ones. That's some really good ones. I know where they just played the Super Bowl over in San Francisco. I know that's a really nice stadium there. That looks really good. Allegiant Stadium out there in Vegas. I know that's a really nice stadium as well. Everybody loves, of course, AT&T Stadium out in Jerry's World, Bank of America. In Charlotte, that's a nice one too. Your Hard Rock Stadium, Gillette Stadium, I would love to go to the new Highmark one where the Bills will be playing. This upcoming season. Lucas Oil Stadium. I've actually passed by there, but I've never been inside. So I would love to go to that one. Raymond James Stadium out there, of course, out there in Tampa, but also U.S. Bank Stadium as well up in Minnesota. It's a nice little condensed. Everyone says it's really one of the better NFL stadiums in the league.
Yeah, a couple for me, real quick, as far as the NFL is concerned. Of course, where the Minnesota Vikings play the Bank of America Stadium. Our colleague and co-host on Fridays, Miss Christine the Cream Manica. Her and her husband, a couple of friends, went there this past year, witnessing the Bears and the Vikings game there. So I would like to visit their Arizona Stadium there. I know that team stinks, but I like to experience a game there that hosts numerous Super Bowls, including that Patriots and Seahawks Super Bowl from the 2014 season. That was in February 2015. I like to visit there. I like to visit. I know it's not called the Link anymore, but where the Seahawks play up. But I do not want to watch the game, just like here in Chicago. I do not want to watch the game when it's bad weather. I like to experience it in the first 2.5 months of the season because watching it on TV, that stadium gets loud. Those fans get crazy. They call it the 12s up there in Seattle. So I like to experience the game there. And let's see, up the East Coast, maybe Tampa Bay's stadium, Raymond James. I know that stadium opened in 1998, I believe. So I like to experience a game there.
Yeah, oddly enough, though, they actually are trying to move. I guess they're trying to I guess they're trying to build a new stadium out there, down there in Tampa. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, there have been some really good. There's some really good ones. I know, Soldier Field, unfortunately. Well, speaking of, I guess we might as well do this real quick. Apparently, there's been another update to this, if you want to call it that. Adam Schefter, about a half hour ago, said that the Bears will decide where to build their new stadium in the next few weeks. If Illinois doesn't pass legislation for funding for the Arlington Heights soon, that the Bears will be Indiana bound. Sources say the proposed sites are not considered feasible, I guess, where the old Michael Reese Hospital used to be, and also, Soldier Field. I guess they were both rejected by the NFL and the Bears. So I'm at that point where I'm just like, I'll believe it when I see it, because they've been saying this for weeks now. So I'm just at the point where it's just like, okay, just make a decision. My God.
Yeah, it's as we talked about on the show. It's been going on for years, ever since the Bears, excuse me, purchased that land formerly known as Arlington Track Race Course about 3 or 4 years ago. And Kevin Warren, the president of the Bears, promising shovels on the ground, this and that. I'm with you until they say that till the Bears officially. It's not AI, it's not anything else, not an April Fool's joke that we see shovels on the ground at Arlington Heights. This is all nonsense at all. Playing possum here between the state and the Bears, and trying to grab Hammer Indiana to play leverage against each other. I'm with you. I'm just sick of it. It's going to be Arlington Heights at the end of the day. And the next news I'm with you, I want to hear is that shovels are officially on the ground for that new stadium, because as we talked about 1,000 times, it's going to bring numerous not just jobs but business opportunities for the Bears, for them to own just about 100% of the revenue coming out of that new stadium. Final Fours, Super Bowl, college football championship, men's and women's college basketball, business conventions, and other events, concerts as well. So once the shovels get into the ground, I think it's really going to become a reality. But it's just hopefully that this playing possum between the franchise and the state in Hammond, Indiana will stop.
We'll take a really quick break. We're going to go to the field now. In this case, we'll start our court. We'll review Saturday's men's Final Four between both. It'll be UConn and Michigan tonight. Of course, we'll recap the national semifinals, and we'll also preview the national championship game tonight. Also, the Bulls, and a lot of rumors involving the Bulls, and a lot of injury issues concerning some of the top contenders in the West. So we'll have that a lot more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports, Sports of Chicago basketball talk, both college and pro, coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the first show for the month of April on Monday, extravaganza edition of Locked and Loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me, LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's again IG.
We're going to dive into some college basketball talk and a little NBA for this segment to wrap up hour number one. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you.
Quick recap of Saturday's national men's semifinal. I previewed it earlier. It was mostly UConn for the first game, of course, the first national semifinal game. It was mostly UConn for a little bit. You give Illinois credit for trying to, got as close as they did, but unfortunately, 3-point shot kind of killed them in the end. They were only 6 for 26 from three and just didn't make the shots late that they could. UConn was able to held them off 71-62 on the UConn side. Terrence Reed Jr. had 17 points. Braylon Mullins is sort of like his homecoming because he's from that area, from Indy. He had 15 points. On the flip side for Illinois, Keaton Waller is probably very likely his final game over at Illinois. He had 20 points. Thomas Isik had 16 points for Illinois also as well. They were the only two players in double figures for the Illini. And I think for me, Sid, this is sort of similar to what happened when they first met each other back in November. It was kind of like, UConn for a little bit. I mean, Illinois did, catch up a little bit. The guys sit down to like 6, but then, UConn was able to pull away, kind of similar to what happened here. The guys actually got even closer than that. They got close to by 3 points, but it was UConn, to their credit, their experience. I think that's the key here. Experience got the best of the Illini late.
Yeah, as I said on the show last Monday, if this matchup was going to take place, that this UConn team wasn't the same as it was when they won the national championship 2 years ago when they beat Illinois in the regional semifinal in Boston. And I thought that Illinois did have a shot, but was the result surprising to me? No. But Illinois did stay close with them until the end of that first half, where a couple of the Isevich boys got in foul trouble, and the Illini were starting to turn the ball over. UConn's defense is very good, folks. As you mentioned, Terrence Reed Jr., he is a beast, folks. You saw what happened, especially toward the midway and toward the late end of that first half last Saturday when UConn was able to pull away for a little bit, and then you saw what they did to start the second half. But it's just simple as this. Illinois did not take care of the basketball, and the shots they were making for the most part throughout the season, LaKeena, they were not falling. I thought that Keaton Wagler, who I think he might have played his last college basketball game, most of those 3-point shots that he was making throughout the season, he didn't make them. He was only 2 for 10 for downtown. I think he was trying to force the issue, and I think a couple of their young guys on the team froze up in the moment there. You could tell that they tried, but they just couldn't hang with UConn. Now, do I think UConn is that much better than Illinois? Technically, yes, but not in the dominating fashion like they were when they had a different squad 2 years ago when they beat Illinois. But Illinois, their shots weren't falling, especially early in that first half. Give them credit. They hung in there tough. They did get the ball inside, but UConn was just a little bit better at that department. And as we talk about throughout this tournament, we say it every year. When the game gets close, it comes down to the intangibles. Can you get those 50-50 balls, which Illinois did not, and can you make your free throws? Illinois did make their free throws, but UConn, as you mentioned, down the stretch there, they got that key rebound, especially with under a minute to go, where Illinois could have got a defensive rebound and made the game a little bit more interesting than the final, which the final score turned out to be. But UConn had the intangibles. They made the big plays when they had to. Illinois, big stars froze up when it counted most.
Yeah, crazy thing is that they actually out rebounded. Well, UConn on the defensive rebounding side, but again, the shots weren't falling, and I think that's really what kind of killed the Illinois in the end, because you can't miss your shots against UConn because they'll make you pay. So, well, Illinois, look, 28-9. Look, we'll see where they go from here. I know Boswell. This is last game. He's a senior. Wagler is probably very likely going to the NBA. He's a projected top 5 pick. So. I know Soyaka I know he's coming back. I know the East Whispers, I think, are back as well. But it's going to be interesting to see what Brett Underwood does, especially for recruiting. So with the transfer portal, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, the other national semifinal was supposed to have been like the de facto national championship game. Well, Michigan had something to say about that. It jumped on really quick, and we've seen how this team has been throughout the tournament. 91-73 was all Michigan pretty much all the time. Ade Mara had 26 points, his season high. Morris Johnson had 10. Elliot Cadu had 13. Yaxel Lundeberg, we'll get to him in a second because he injured his knee and ankle. We'll talk about that. Also, Trey McKitty has 16 points off the bench. On the flip side for Arizona, 16 points for Koa Pete, probably his last game there. He's a projected top 5 pick as well. Jaden Bradley, his last game, 13 points as well for Braden Burries. And it was basically all Michigan all the time. They're actually the first team with all Michigan to ever scored 90-plus points in 5 times in a single tournament. So, there's really what else you can say about this one. It was basically, like I said, it was all Michigan.
Yeah, I turned that game off at halftime. That's how bad it was. We both picked Arizona to win the title, and we both looked like fools. But but it happens, folks. But you mentioned Michigan made their shots. Arizona didn't. That was the bottom line. Michigan shot the ball well, 48% overall, 44% from 3. As you mentioned about Lindenborg, he did not have a good game, partially due to injuries. But who's going to be the other guys to step up? You mentioned about Mara, I should say. He had a good game. He led the team with 26 points. Cadeau had 13. Off the bench, you had McKinney. He had 16 points, including 6 and 9 shooting overall, 4 or 6 from downtown. So, as we say all the time, when your superstars do not have it going, who's going to be the other guys to pick it up? It was a team win for Michigan. On the flip side, you mentioned for Arizona, Burris, probably his last game, did not shoot the ball well, including 2 of 10 for downtown. That was not impressive. Jaden Bradley, my guy, he tried, but it wasn't enough. Anthony Del Orso, my guy, coming off the bench, he really didn't contribute much. He played the most minutes off the bench at 17, but he only had 3 points, including 1 of 5 shooting overall. So Arizona, they were outmanned, out-toughened by Michigan. As we talked about before, LaKeena, in years past, Michigan, not just Michigan, but teams in the Big Ten usually play each other rough and tough throughout the season. Then when it gets to the tournament, most of the teams outside of Michigan State occasionally do not advance past the first weekend. Of course, that myth has been broken this year. And Michigan proved to be the tougher team. They got out to a nice start, which I mentioned with the hot shooting, and they beat Arizona in every which way possible. It was a clinic there in that first half.
And this will set up tonight's national championship game between UConn and Michigan. Oddly enough, this is going to be the first time they ever played each other in the tournament. They actually have not played each other head-to-head since you got going back to 2015 in some Atlantis tournament down in the Bahamas. UConn won that one. So Lodeberg, of course, he's doing getting around-the-clock treatment. No ligaments is torn, so all ligaments are intact. It's just really about pain management and such for Michigan and for him. So he, even if they really didn't need him, but guys like Mara, Johnson Jr., Cadeau, I mean, those guys are going to have to pick up the slack if he's going to be on a minutes restriction. If Coach May puts him on a minutes restriction. I'm talking about Lindenborg now. As far as UConn's concerned, look, Reed Jr., Carbon, I mean, those guys, they've been there, so they know what it takes, to win a championship. They were there for those first 2. Solo Ball, I know that he's been a little bit banged up, but it looks like he's going to be a good to go as well. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if Michigan, who's going to set the tone early, because if you're, UConn, again, they had a tendency to missing threes. That's what happened with them against Illinois. And if they miss their threes, Michigan will make it pay. And this could get out of hand quick if they don't make their threes early. If Michigan starts getting on a roll here, if you're Michigan, you want to set that tone early, perhaps maybe put them away, unlike what Duke couldn't do about a week ago. So to me, I think that's really going to be the keys tonight.
Yeah, a couple of keys for me. One, physicality. You saw that with UConn and Michigan last Saturday, and both their victories. Who's going to set the tone tonight? And will the referees let them set the tone and play it out early? Because if you set the tone, let them be physical. That way, you got to let them be physical at the end of the game. Number two, you mentioned about Solo Ball. He had 13 points last Saturday in the win over Illinois. Let's see if he could be that second guy to help out Terrence Reed Jr. Step up in terms of scoring. And number three, take care of the basketball, because like you said, we saw what UConn did to Illinois, forcing 8 Illini turnovers, and they stole the ball from them, including six steals from the Illini. So that's going to be key. Michigan, as you mentioned, they can play both ways, half court, and they can get up and down. If you're UConn, yes, they got some great athletes, but you really don't. Dan Hurley really doesn't want to play an up and down style. They really don't. They want to play a half court style game. So I think setting the tone early with the physicality, taking care of the basketball, and like you said, who's going to have the defensive intangibles to win this game? If Landenborg plays, will Dan Hurley, seeing some double teams out of him, make those other folks from Michigan pay, especially shooting from the outside? Like you said, they're good, but UConn's defensive rotation, in my opinion, last Saturday, especially in that first half, was excellent against Illinois. You notice Illinois, they're outside of King Wagler, they weren't jacking up as many threes as they normally would do throughout the year. So I think those are the tangibles that people should watch out for when you're watching this game tonight.
And the interesting part is that's going to be very. They're sort of like this will be the Michigan's another shot. They've been there a couple of times. They haven't won since '89. Of course, this will be number 6 for UConn should they win tonight. So gonna be interesting to see what happens here. Now, I actually have Michigan. I actually found a bracket where I actually had these two teams playing each other in the title game. So I'm gonna go. I picked Michigan, so I gotta stick to that. So I'm picking Michigan for this one tonight.
Oh, really?
Yep, I found. Yep. One of my old throwaway brackets.
How interesting. I'll go the other way and go with UConn only because they can set the tone defensively, especially with their physicality. And Landenborg, he's one of the best players in college basketball. We've been talking about all year, but I think his injury situation will impact what Michigan can do, especially offensively. And I think just like last Saturday, UConn will have the intangibles at the end to shut down Michigan shooting, especially with their perimeter defense. So I'm going with UConn in a close. And I think the last time I checked that Michigan, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Michigan was a 6.5-point favorite. Yes, they're currently still 6.5-point favorite, but I think I'm picking UConn to win this game, and I think it's going to be a hell of a lot closer than what people think.
And of course, remember this game will be on TBS, True TV, and HBO Max. This is going to be happening every couple of years. So for folks, bitching and moaning about, why is it on TBS? Why is it on CBS? This is part of their agreement, folks. It's been that way for like the last 5 years. So don't act like this is a new thing, folks. But also the good news is that it's before 8 o'clock. First tip is at 7:50. So there you go.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Seiya, LaKeena kicking in with you. Now let's transition over to the hardwood in the NBA. Let's start out locally. LaKeena, I know you have your eyes closed, but the Chicago Bulls lost in ugly fashion last Friday at MSG. The New York Knicks get back on track, beating the Bulls 136-96. And of course, yesterday at the United Center, the Phoenix Suns, they're trying to stay out of the play-in tournament in the Western Conference, they get a big win on the road over the Chicago Bulls, 120-110. LaKeena, I think there's more news about what's going on off the court than it is on the court. On the court, the tankathon is still on. Which position they'll pick it, we'll find out next month. But The way that the situation is going down in Chicago, reading through some of the tweets and some of the articles that people who we know personally who covered the team, there could be more changes that we may know. Billy Donovan, of course, he was rumored to take the North Carolina's other NBA job. But I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear that Billy Donovan will separate at the end of the year. The $1 million question is, will GM Mark Eversley and Arturis kind of show us, will they be giving their pink slips and link cards, even though they were given extensions around this time last year?
Yeah, that was that big thing over the weekend with maybe Coach Donovan might step away. Some people say maybe he might go for a North Carolina job. Well, according to ESPN's Pete Thamel, that's not happening because former Nuggets head coach Michael Malone has been tapped as new head coach for North Carolina. This actually literally just came across my Twitter feed about a minute ago. So yeah, that's not happening. But even still, I mean, there was this, there's these rumors that maybe he might step away, and there's also some rumors that the Bulls might completely clean house. Maybe AK might, AK and Mark Eversley might be gone as well. I'll believe that when I see it. Bob Myers, of course, the longtime Warriors GM. Also, Mike Dunleavy Jr. His name's being thrown around as well. Okay. Yeah, I'll believe all that stuff when I see it. So
here's the thing, LaKeena. Let's just say that AK and Mark Eversley both get the boot this summer. Like you said, who's really going to take over? Yes, Bob Myers is a hot name, and you have some of the couple other guys that are coming up as executives in the league. But who really wants to take this job? Because you have a lot of house cleaning to do. Yes, we said this all year, and we'll keep saying it here. You have some pieces to build around, at least to get it started with Montez Buzelis, who's having a very good second year. And you have Josh Giddey, who did not play yesterday, I believe, due to his left hamstring acting up again. He didn't play yesterday, but we all know that he's close to Mr. Triple Double every time he touches the basketball. This team needs shooters, and they need people to score inside, and we have not seen that from this Bulls team all year. You got some players on this team that are wasting space, i.e. Patrick Lee Williams. Shout out Big Dave Watson, good friend of the show from CHGO Bulls. You want to know his stat line from yesterday real quick, LaKeena?
I already know,
in
but
24 minutes of action, 5 points, 2 base shooting, and 1 rebound. And you gave that man an extension for the start of the season. Are you kidding me? I just had to let that out. But a couple of other young guys that have been playing well, and Rob Dillingham, who had 10 points yesterday. Of course, Colin Sexton, who may not be back with the team this year, but after giving the bird to the Ram shortly after he was traded from over here from Brooklyn, he's been playing very well. He had 18 points yesterday in 31 minutes of action. But so the Bulls do have pieces, but I do not expect all of them to be back. Like you said, they need to clean house, and whoever comes in here, given assuming that AK and Eversley are out of here, who really wants this job? It's going to have to be, I hate to say it, like we said about the Chicago Bears head coaching job for years, it's a stepping stone to something else. It's got to be someone that's going to be young and hungry and rebuild the teams the way that it's being done in today's NBA. Right now, I just don't see it from this current administration. 1 playoff appearance in 2022, 3 straight years after that in the play-in tournament, did not advance in the play-in tournament. It's just unacceptable.
The Wes Unseld Jr., who's a top assistant to Donovan, they say they may just promote from within. But if you're gonna bring in a whole new GM and president of basketball operations or whatever, do you really think they're gonna want to? No shade to Wes Unseld Jr., who's actually a pretty decent coach and a decent guy. But would you really want to keep him? So yeah, just to keep it short, because like I said, we gotta get to talk about the rest of the NBA because we got some injury news to talk about. But I just honestly, it's just like, who would even want to come here? Because is it going to be a big destination for some of these folks? I don't think so. So I guess, all right.
No. Like I said, this team is in rebuild mode right now. It was hard for this administration to admit that, but even though they were given contract extensions last summer, you know that the Rhinestores don't like to employ folks longer than a year plus without being fired. So I would not be shocked if AK and Eversley are back next season, but if they decide to pull the plug this early, give almost a year after their extensions, is it the right move? Yes. Will the Rhinestores actually do it like they did with Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn in the middle of that ugly 2023 season for the White Sox? It's possible, but I'm with you. I believe it. I'll believe it when I see it.
So the rest of the NBA, to wrap things up the first hour, Steph Curry made his return after a knee injury. He had 29 points, but he just missed a shot at the buzzer. Houston held them off, 117, 116. This is from yesterday. The Clippers beat the Kings. Dallas, Cooper Flag got his second triple, I should say, of his career, 45 points, a career high for him as they beat the Lakers. Things are kind of starting to fall apart for the Lakers because Luka is hurt with his hamstring, and now Austin Reeves, he's now hurt, so he's going to be out for the first round of the playoffs. So, look, I mean, things are kind of starting to go haywire for the Lakers, and they're the 4th seed. I'm looking at this right now. They're still the 3rd seed, but they could very well fall down to perhaps maybe the 4, maybe the 5 seed these last 4 games of the season, especially with all these injuries.
Yeah, for the Los Angeles Lakers, we talked about this on the show for a couple weeks ago. Luka Doncic is the man for the Lakers. You want the offense to go through him. Austin Reeves just made it back a little bit over a month and a half ago. He was starting to play well. LeBron was starting to, quote unquote, accept his role as the 3rd guy on the team. Now that LeBron James is left out on the island by himself, you may get Luka back in time for the playoffs, but you need that 3rd scorer. And whoever they play, whether it's Houston, Denver, or whoever in Minnesota, if they get Anthony Edwards back in time for the playoffs, it's going to be ugly because you're going to ask LeBron James to play more than 35 minutes in the playoffs. And I don't know if he's built for that, especially at this time of year at his advanced age of 41. So you're asking a lot from a Lakers team that they were playing well before these injuries occurred to Doncic and Austin Reeves. Now, you mentioned Austin Reeves not being available for the opening round of the playoffs. It's really going to be tough. DeAndre Ayton out after the first month of the season. He's been MIA. And do I expect him to show up as being that quote-unquote 3rd scorer in the playoffs? Is it expected of him? Yes. Until I see it, I don't see him doing anything. And that's really sad for if you're a Lakers fan. It really is.
Minnesota's actually got their own issues because they've lost a couple in a row. They lost a tough one to Charlotte last night, and they also lost to Philly on Friday. And it looks like maybe Anthony Edwards his knee injury might be similar to what Steph went through. Remember, he missed a couple of months, so some people say he might be out. That's what some of the reports are saying from Minnesota. Don't know if that's true or not, but we'll have to. That's something to look out for as well. Detroit, they've officially clinched the number 1 seed in the East. They beat Philadelphia on Saturday. Denver in an overtime thriller, they beat San Antonio 136-134. They've been on a roll. I know some people are saying that maybe Denver could be a sleeper coming out of the West. I would implore folks, Jokic. Look, I'm just saying that there's a lot of wear and tear on that body. I know he's still being very productive, with triple doubles and such, but I just don't see them. They may win a round, but I don't see them going all the way to the NBA final, back to the finals. I just don't see it.
As we've been saying for the last few weeks on this show, Jokic is fatigued right now. As you said, he's Mr. Workhorse for the Denver Nuggets. But remember what happened to them in 2 years ago, the year after they won the title. Minnesota smacked them around because the role players on the Nuggets like Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, everyone else did not show up. Of course, Bruce Brown was gone off that team to Brooklyn at that time. Now he's back currently, but the role players for Denver must step up, be healthy, and come ready to play come playoff time because Denver cannot advance in the playoffs unless their role players are stepping a big time. Jamal Murray has to take his game to another level. Aaron Gordon, who's been in and out of the lineup with various injuries all year, he has to stay healthy. And we saw last year, I still say this, I know this is a moot point now, but if he wasn't injured for Game 7 against OKC, if he was healthy, they would have beat OKC on the road, in my opinion. But that's neither here or there. there. But different role players must step up to help out Jokic because if they don't, like you said, LaKeena, they may win the first round, but they'll exit the second round of the playoffs again, like they have been doing the last 2 years.
Now, if you had now going back to Saturday, if you had the over in the Heat Wizards game, you had a nice start to your Saturday, 152-126. Jaime Jaquez Jr. had 32 points. He had a very nice weekend. We'll talk about that coming up in hour number 2. Boston beat Milwaukee. Philadelphia, of course, I said Mr. Philadelphia beat Minnesota. Speaking of Milwaukee, Giannis wants to play. And the front office does not want him to play. So take that for what it's worth, folks.
Yeah, as we told you at the All-Star break, if it came down to the situation between what Giannis and the Milwaukee's front office, it was going to get ugly. Now you got the Players Association being involved, and Milwaukee's front office is doing the right thing, quote unquote, the right thing, but not playing Giannis because we all know they're going to try to trade him this summer because he's doing an extension before the start of next season. And Giannis, we appreciate stars like him that wants to play, that gives it his all, but he's starting to be injury prone at around his early 30s now, and he's been injury prone for the last 3 or 4 years. So Milwaukee's trying to protect their assets, no pun intended, and we all know that Milwaukee's been out of the playoff chase for ever since he got hurt early in the year. So as I said at the All-Star break, I'll say it again. Giannis has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think he has both feet out the door now, and I think this is a perfect setup to say, well, I wanted to play, but management didn't want me to play. I can't trust him anymore, so I'm headed out the door. It's going to be interesting who's going to bid for his services this summer.
I I know he's been very adamant that he wants to play, but I always say for what? I mean, you're out of the playoff picture, so I know you just want to see if I know you're a competitor, you want to play some games, but you only got 4 games, if I should say. You play 78 games right now. There's no need for him to play at this point. I mean, you just try to see what you can do, and plus, we'll see, what happens if where he goes this summer, because he is going somewhere. He's not going to be in Milwaukee uniform this time next season.
Speaking of being somewhere, since we pressed enough for time, we'll give you the schedule for the last full week of the NBA's regular season, starting with tonight's schedule. Detroit, as LaKeena mentioned, they clinched the number 1 overall seed in the East. They'll face the Orlando Magic. Cleveland will visit Memphis. LeBron James had a lot to say about that city, but we'll get into that another time. Philadelphia will play the San Antonio Spurs. And the Denver Nuggets, as we talked about, they'll host the Portland Trail Blazers, who are currently in the play-in tournament conversation in the Western Conference. That's your schedule for tonight.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, you got the Bulls playing the Wizards in the Tank Bowl, as we call for this one. Minnesota, they've lost a couple in a row. Yep, they've lost a couple in a row as they go to Indiana. Milwaukee and Brooklyn, Miami and Toronto. That might be an intriguing game. You might take the over on that one. Charlotte and Boston. That's the first game of the NBC Coast to Coast, also streaming on Peacock. Utah and New Orleans, Sacramento and Golden State. OKC and the Lakers. I know NBC's glad they passed on this one. Dallas and the Clippers. And your second game of the NBC Coast to Coast, for those of you out west, it'll stream also on Peacock. For the rest of y'all, Houston and Phoenix.
All right, your Wednesday schedule looks like this. The first game of the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader will feature the surprising Atlanta Hawks visiting the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's at 6 o'clock. Followed by Portland at San Antonio. They'll show Wednesday night doubleheader games on ESPN. The rest of the schedule for Wednesday looks like this. Minnesota will visit Orlando. Milwaukee will face Detroit. Minnesota will face Orlando. Sorry. Memphis will visit Denver to take on the Nuggets. OKC, the Thunder will visit the LA Clippers, and the Dallas Mavericks and Cooper Flag will pay a trip to Phoenix to face Devin Booker and the Suns. And that's your schedule for Wednesday.
Thursday, you got Toronto and hosting Miami. That might be an intriguing matchup. We'll be seeing that in the playoffs in a few weeks. The Bulls and Washington. No, I'm not repeating myself. They actually do play again on Thursday. Don't ask me why. Pacers and Brooklyn. Your first game of the
Why?
Exactly. Your first game of the prime doubleheader. You got Boston and New York. Could be a playoff preview, maybe. We'll see. Philadelphia and Houston. And you got LeBron and the Lakers against Golden State now with Steph Curry back. That's the second game, that prime video doubleheader. That's just scheduled for Thursday in the NBA and also for this week in the NBA.
All right, hour number one's doors are closed shut. Hour number two's doors will open following these messages right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. The White Sox haven't done this since 2004. A legend finally gets his number retired. Trouble injury news from the North Side Baseball Club. A big trade in the WNBA. And we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday Extravaganza edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Seiya, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number two, the Monday Extravaganza edition of Second City Sports, the first show for the month of April. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
We're going to kick off hour number 2 discussing baseball, both the Cubs and the White Sox, and everything else in between Major League Baseball from this first week in MLB. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects of baseball, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the open screen for you.
All right, we'll start over at G-rate as the White Sox sweep the Blue Jays, and I think I'll explain more about that in a second. 3-0 was the last game of that series. They held them out there. Davis Martin, another solid outing for him. 6 strikeouts, only gave up 4 hits, and it was basically all White Sox there. Miguel Vargas had an RBI. Liz Sosa also had an RBI as well, so, scoring Murakami, and Hayes also had a RBI as well. He had a nice solve as well for them. Also, Tanner Murray, who they just called up, he had a solid weekend. Of course, some big catches and such. So a really solid opening overall. The White Sox go to 4-5, and look, I'll say it like this. Yeah, good for the White Sox. Look, they swept the defending AL champions, but this is also a Blue Jays squad that's been struggling lately. They lost the series at home against Colorado, and the Sox there were able to take advantage of that. So I think this has more about what the Blue Jays are doing than the White Sox. Like I said, I don't think the White Sox are going to finish in the last place in the AL Central. I don't think that's happening. I don't think they'll probably with 70-75. So at least the building blocks are there. So I'm not going to, I've seen a lot of White Sox fans say, "Oh, well, hey, we're back. I think folks need to slow down on that. We're not even a weekend. We're only a full weekend. So this is just, I know White Sox fans want something to cheer about, and you do guys things to cheer about, but let's level the expectations a little bit, folks.
Hey, 4-5 is better than 1-5, correct? So you had to give the White Sox credit there. I'm not saying save up your money, go get playoff tickets. That's we still have a long way to go between now and the end of the season. But during the first 6 games of the year for the White Sox, we mentioned about the 1-5 record. Run differential -31, and the team ERA was at an 8.63 clip. And the team batting average was below the Mendoza line at 200, at 192 to be exact. During the 3-game sweep against Toronto, 193 team ERA, +7 in the run differential department, and a 263 batting average. Yes, yours truly was there for all 3 games. They took advantage of Toronto's mistakes to start out with that almost game-ending blunder last Friday where Miguel Vargas scored. And, of course, Derek Hill with that big bunt with 2 outs, forcing the issue on Toronto's defensive part. Toronto couldn't take advantage of that. Kept the inning alive for Trisha Peterson, who knocked in that game-winning RBI last Friday to win it in 10. Of course, Saturday, Munetaka Murakami hit his first home run in the White Sox uniform at White Sox Park, and followed up by Coastal Montgomery. He's been struggling to start out the year bat-wise, but his bat was starting to get going. You mentioned about Miguel Vargas. He's hitting close to 280 right now. He had that grand slam 1 week ago today against the Miami Marlins. His bat is starting to come alive as well. So the White Sox starting pitching deserves some credit as well. You mentioned Davis Martin, who I picked to be a breakout star in that starting rotation. He did well yesterday. Grant Taylor, who the White Sox expect big things from this year. He started the first 2 games of the series, pitched 1 inning both games to give Sean Burke, who was the original starter for the whole opener, some relief. And he did his job. So overall, the White Sox played very good team ball. They got it going with their bats offensively. They played well defensively. As you mentioned, they took advantage of Toronto's mistakes, and they won the ball game. So, and Anthony Kay followed up with a good performance last Saturday as well. So Anthony Kay has been a nice surprise for this White Sox team. Should have won the game a week ago yesterday against Milwaukee, but we won't talk about that as ancient old news now. So the White Sox bats finally started to heat up, and they did against a good Toronto team who I still expect it to be there for the AL East division title at season's end. So the White Sox won this as much as Toronto gave it away.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think this is sort of going to be interesting to see what, like I said, look, I know White Sox fans. I stand by what I said, that that White Sox fans are like, oh, I know they want something to lean on to, and they have. I mean, look, Martin has had a great first couple of outings, and okay, had a solid out, had a couple of solid outings as well. But we'll see how they do against Baltimore. They got swept in Pittsburgh this weekend, so I'm wondering what mood they're going to be in. So I know this is the Baltimore squad that we saw just a few years ago, but like I said, I think it's going to be, I think the really thing is that whoever team you're cheering for, whatever baseball, they've only played about 8 to 10 games, depending on how your schedule is. So I think freaking out about one thing or being overly excited about one thing, it's not a good showing now, unless it's the usual suspects. Now, as far as the Cubs are concerned, I think injuries are more of an issue for the Cubs at this juncture. Cade Horton, got hurt in that first game of that doubleheader against Cleveland, and I think it's not serious right now. Though he'll go on the IL, and we'll see what happens with that. I know he had Tommy John before he went to college. That's not really a good thing. That could be a Jet Hoyer calling right now, but but also some news. Shadab Sharma, Matthew Boyd is also going to be on the IL with the left bicep strain. Javier Assad has been recalled that he'll start that second game, I should say. The first game is against they go there in Tampa right now. They'll face the Rays later this afternoon. Assad will play the second game tomorrow. But they lose 2 out of 3 to Cleveland. Back in Cleveland. And I will say this though, on the bright side, Edward Cabrera, who they got from Miami, he was really good in his first couple of starts. He did have 5 walks, but none of them came across. 4 strikeouts. Played the guy's first day of the season, so I think that's really sort of commendable there. So there's some good parts. I'm not one. I know Cubs fans are already freaking out, especially with the Boyd news, but. Look, it does get any easier because you're facing a Tampa squad that had a good, solid early start this early season. So, I think the Cubs, it's got to be consistency with it, avoiding injuries, perhaps even getting both the hitting and the pitching to kind of mesh.
Yeah, speaking of the hitting for the Northside National League Ball Club, they only average barely over four runs a game, with a 206 team batting average and the on base percentage of just over 300. Slugging percentage at 344. Those statistics are not good. I guess you can blame part of it on the bad early weather here in Chicago when they faced Washington and the Los Angeles Angels or Anaheim to open up their home portion of the schedule. But we talked about this Cleveland team being a well-balanced team, a team that can sneak up on you if you make a mistake against them. And we saw that in that 3-game series with the Tribe taking 2 out of 3. You mentioned about Edward Cabrera. We talked about him when they acquired him via the trade back in the offseason, back in January. He has some filthy stuff, especially his changeup. His changeup was excellent yesterday in that game 1 of that doubleheader. You mentioned about giving up those 5 walks, but those walks did not come back to bite him in the butt. And when you talk about the Cubs team defensively, they need to step up. They have so thus far, but their bats have been very quiet from the outset.
Yeah, I think like you said, the weather could be you could probably play a little bit on that, the rain and the cold in some parts of the country. I know here in Chicago we had those rainstorms most of last week, so you can probably play a little bit for that. But I think it just needs to be. Look, you're going to be down there in a warm environment in Tampa, and look, Tampa. I know they've had a pretty hot start. Well, not hot start, but I know they're 4 and 5. They're just to say where the Cubs are, and their run differential is -5. So hopefully you can use that and take advantage of that, and we'll see what happens in the schedule. Well, let's do your pitching matchups for these schedules coming up. Of course, like I said, Baltimore, they're facing the White Sox it'll be Taylor versus Young, Grant Taylor versus Brandon Young in that first game tonight up there at G-Rate. And then you got Shane Smith. Hopefully he can get back going. He has had a good first couple of starts against Trevor Rogers. And, of course, the rubber match of that game, let me see here. It'll be Sean Burke versus Kyle Bradish. He has had a good start. You're talking about Bradish, so maybe the White Sox, if they could get 2 out of 3, I think that would be it'd be a good win if you're a White Sox fan.
Yeah, catching Baltimore at the right time, and we're going into the national. What happened outside of both our Chicago teams in just a second, but Baltimore, they got swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates. The third time in the last 4 years, they started out 6-3. Their star prospect shortstop Connor. His name escapes me for the moment. Connor Griffin, I should say, made his debut over the weekend. He had an RBI double in his first at bat last Friday. We talked about Baltimore last year. LaKeena, Brandon Hyde, now ex-manager, got the boot a couple months into the season. They had injuries, bad starting pitching, and they just really couldn't get it going from the outset. It looks like they're not going to fire their first-year manager now, but Baltimore starting pitching went south this past weekend against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh looks like they finally started to pull it together. How many years have we been saying that? So for the White Sox, you're riding a 3-game winning streak, and you just beat the defending AL champs. So like you say, if they take 2 out of 3 for Baltimore, which they should do, I think this will bode well for the White Sox. Like you said, Shane Smith has to get back on track. He struggled during the spring. He's carried over to the regular season so far. His first 2 starts. Hopefully he gets that turnaround for Baltimore. He's just looking for any starting pitcher outside of Tyler Rogers at this point. And Pete Alonso, his bat's starting to get going a little bit, but you need more from his his counterparts like Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, some of those other guys as well. Offense and they started pitching for Baltimore, as we talked about much of last year, has really been a problem for the outset to start the year.
Now, as far as the Cubs are concerned, Jameson Taillon will have to start in a couple of hours from now against Ryan McClanahan. He's Shane McClanahan, I should say. So we'll see what happens later today for the Cubs. Of course, we talked about Javier Assad. He'll get the start tomorrow against Drew Rasmussen. And Craig House has not made an announcement of who will pitch the rubber match on Wednesday, and they'll face Joe Boyle. So if you're the Cubs, you want to try to see if you can get a couple of these games down in Tampa. I know it's going to be hard to do, but I think if for confidence wise, especially, I think you want to be able to perhaps at the very least win the series, if not sweep. I think if they could at least win 2 out of 3 in this matchup against Tampa, I think that will make Cubs fans feel a lot better.
And the bats, like we just mentioned a moment ago, they have to get it going. They're barely averaging over 4.1 runs per ball game. And Seiya Suzuki may be back by the time we get back on the air on Friday. We'll see what happens between now and then. But Tampa Bay is going to be full of emotions there because they're playing back in Tropicana Field inside a dome for the first time in a couple years. And so the emotions are going to be running high. But like you said, for the Cubs to take care of business, they had to take 2 out of 3 from the Tampa Bay Rays. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Seiya LaKeena here with you. We still got to talk about the rest of the Major League Baseball for this past weekend, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The Cardinals, they've avoided being swept by beating the Tigers last night on Sunday Night Baseball, 5-3. The Anaheim Angels, they took care of the Seattle Mariners 8-7 yesterday. LaKeena, did you check out the highlights from this series from Saturday's game? Last Saturday night's game.
Yeah,
Joe Adele, not once, not twice, 3 times taking away home runs from the Mariners.
Yeah, of course he deserved that Gatorade shower. That at that ballpark, I mean, in most ballparks, all 3 of those would have been home runs, but that was one of the few bright spots for the Angels this week. And of course, we talked about that ballpark out there in Anaheim, I should say, just outside Anaheim, and he was able to jump in and rob all 3 of those home runs. So, but yeah, they but that was one of the few bright spots up. Yeah, but they won. They shaped the Mariners should have won that series. That's all there is to it. But yeah. But look, good for him and such. Like, it's rare that happens, but it's gonna be I mean, look, I'm not worried about the Mariners right now. I know. Look, we know we see the Angels do this the last few years. They do okay, but then they kind of fall back to earth. So I'm not gonna go too far into the weeds with that. Now we talked about back to the speaking of Detroit. I mean, they're back there at 4-5 right now. I don't think that's a bad thing that they're not coming out guns blazing like they did last year. We saw what happened last year. They got to a big lead. Of course, they lost that lead to the Guardians late in the season. Maybe this isn't a bad thing where they have to play catch up. But if you're Therese Skubal. I think you're looking to see how this team does, and it's gonna be kind of interesting to see what happens here, because if Detroit doesn't get it going within these next few weeks, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to if Skubal decides, hey, like he wants to be traded.
Yeah, we'll see what happens for the Tigers. One team that fans should be worried about is the Boston Red Sox. The San Diego Padres take care of them in Fenway Park over the weekend. The Red Sox, with their slow start, they're only averaging 2.7 runs per game. We know that that offense came alive, especially after the All-Star break last year with the young talent that they have. Of course, you have former White Sox pitcher Gary Crochet, who's runner-up in the AL Cy Young Award race a year ago. If you're a Boston Red Sox fan, is it time to panic, or you still need to get them at least the rest of this month to see if they get their act together?
Well, I think the first week of the season is basically kind of to their off season. Of course, they lost Bregman, a couple other guys that they didn't sign. So unfortunately, of course, they will come into a very lackluster start. So we'll see how they do against Milwaukee coming up starting tomorrow, I believe. So like I said, tonight I should say. So yeah, so we'll see what happens with that one. They'll be at home, so maybe being at home will be just what they need. So we'll see what happens with that. Now the Dodgers are the Dodgers. They swept they swept the Nationals, as they should, and they actually were down in a couple of these games. So I know Mookie Betts is on the IL, but again, this is why you have guys like Ohtani, Freddie Freeman picking up the slack and such. Will Smith as well. So this is what happens. One guy goes down, of course, but the other guys step up. So the Dodgers will show you why they're defending champs. Now the Yankees on the other side of that coin. The Yankees, they lost. They didn't sweep. They just missed out on the sweep to Miami, but they did win 2 out of 3. And I think if you're 7-2, if you're the Yankees if you're a Yankee fan right now, you gotta be feeling pretty good about where your team is. So kind of the usual suspects, if you will, here in some of these divisions. But at least right now, I think it's kind of going as in some cases it's going by how we expected it.
You mentioned about Tampa Bay. Let's give love to them. They swept the Minnesota Twins over the weekend. The Cincinnati Reds, they swept the Texas Rangers. I know some people had them as a surprise team coming out of the AL West as a wild card. Well, the Cincinnati Reds starting pitching has been injured. And of course, Hunter Green is out to maybe mid to late next month. But their starting pitching was excellent over the weekend. Ellie De La Cruz had another home run in that series. Cincinnati, I'm not going to sit here and say that Cincinnati is going to win the NL Central. I don't think that's going to happen. But they were a playoff team last year, and they're getting off to a nice start, especially on the road.
Now going to San Francisco, they lose 3 out of 4 after that first game against the Mets. Unfortunately, they lost the last 3, and Tony Vitello got ejected, and the Giants are 3-7. I think a lot of people thought that, especially since this is his first Major League Baseball manager, a lot of people thought, okay, this might be a little bit of time. I don't think anybody thought that they would be 3-7 this early this season. So if you're a Giants fan, should you be worried?
A little bit, because this is a first-year manager coming from the college ranks with no previous experience in terms of coaching in the major league. So it's definitely going to take some time for him, because they still have a lot of above-average talent on that team. So it's going to take time for him to get used to the players and get used to rhythm of a normal major league season. So with the NL West, in my opinion, being down this year, because I still don't trust San Diego, even though what they did against Boston this past weekend. Arizona, they still up and down. You saw what they did against the Braves. Colorado still stinks, even though they avoided being swept yesterday by the Phillies at home. San Francisco, they can still get it together here, but that first-year manager is still going to take him some time to get used to the rhythms of a normal baseball year.
And of course, I know we got to get to the schedule, but last but not least, Kansas City lose 2 out of 3. Hosting the Brewers. It's going to be interesting to see if maybe the Royals. I know some people thought the Royals could perhaps maybe challenge the Guardians and the Tigers for the AL Central. Salvador Perez hit hit a home run. They led a 6-run, 6-inning. That's ended up being the lone win. Of course, it's with the doubleheader. They ended up being the lone win in that series. So Kansas City is going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm kind of to see what Kansas City does. Especially, we'll see what they do the rest of this month. It's gonna, this is what I've said.
Yeah, like I said, with Kansas City, you still have Salvador Perez, the Angels won. You still have Bobby Witt Jr. there, but Vinny Pasquantino, some of the other guys in Atlanta, they have to pick it up. Their starting pitching will have to make a huge turnaround as well. On the flip side for Milwaukee, we've seen this over the last few years. They strong starting pitching, strong bullpen, playing great defense at timely hitting. That's how this team rolls. That's how this team wins, and they got back to that last weekend in Kansas City on the road.
Your schedule for this week in the MLB starting tonight. These are the series that are starting tonight. Of course, we're talking about the Cubs at Tampa, Kansas City and Cleveland, Cincinnati and Miami. San Diego starts their East Coast trip against Pittsburgh, Milwaukee and Boston, St. Louis and Washington, the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Of course, the rematch from this past season's World Series. We'll see how Toronto does, of course, after being swept by the White Sox. The first game of that series will be on FS1 tonight at 6:07. Orioles and White Sox, Detroit and Minnesota, Seattle and Texas. Both these teams didn't have great weekends, so we'll see which team can bounce back from that. Houston and Colorado, Atlanta and the Angels on ESPN Unlimited there, and also Philadelphia and San Francisco, the first game of that series.
Of the series that are starting tomorrow, Kansas City at Cleveland. We still call them Oakland on this show, but the Oakland Athletics visit New York to take on the Yankees. The Arizona Diamondbacks will take a visit to Gotham City. They'll face the New York Mets. And the Detroit Tigers and Minnesota Twins will get it on at Target Field starting tomorrow. And I think you mentioned Houston, Colorado. They start tonight. They're on the schedule for tomorrow. So that is your schedule for this week's series that's starting today and tomorrow.
Your national televised games, of course, the second game of the Dodgers Blue Jays series will be on TBS. Your Tuesday game of the week there on ESPN. You've got Houston and Colorado. And your Prime Video matchup for Wednesday, of course, talked about the A's and the Yankees. That game will be on Prime Video on FS1. Detroit and Minnesota, that's going to be your Wednesday game. And for Thursday, to see a few other series, of course, the Sox will begin their series against Kansas City. We'll see. I know that Casey's been a kind of a house of horrors for them. We'll see if things are a little bit different this year. The Mets and the D-backs, they start their series. That game will be on MLB Network. Detroit and Minnesota will finish this series. So that's going to be on ESPN on Thursday. And Colorado and San Diego will begin their series at 8:40. And also early series, the Reds and the Marlins will begin their series in Miami.
Buckle up. This is our last segment for the show. We call it our Sports Potpourri segment. When we return, the Blackhawks starting to wrap up their regular season, even though they're out the playoffs. We'll recap the women's college basketball championship game between UCLA and South Carolina. We'll have some other nuggets as well, and we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday celebrating March Madness. That and a whole lot more. You stick and stay right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Monday Extravaganza, Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And you follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again the IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. So if you have any last minute questions or comments on any of the topics we discussed thus far on today's show, you better hit us up, not now, but right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will give the up on the screen for you.
We got some breaking news here. Where's the sounder at? Do. Oh, I can't do that. The old ABC sounders from back in the day. This is according to Sharnia. This is literally, he literally just posted this a couple minutes ago. Yes, this is really count, guys. The Bulls have dismissed Executive Vice President of Basketball Ops Arturas Kardashovas and GM Mark Eversley, according to sources tell him and ESPN. So, yeah. So, busy sports day so far. Chicago will tell you another reason why that's the case in just a second here. But, Sid, yeah, some, looks like maybe the White Sox are actually being serious here. So, what do you think?
Well, it's about damn time. So maybe the White Sox may be operating on a different level. I was going to bring up this point when we were discussing the Bulls and the NBA in our segment last hour. That remember they had to they caved into fan pressure right before COVID. We were doing our radio show downtown, and GM Gar Foreman and John Paxson, they were given the boot, but they waited too long to do that. Well, they didn't wait as long to do it this time. So maybe some cooler heads prevailed up there on West Madison Street. Say, hey, you gotta get this thing going. The question is now, since we all know that the Bulls in a rebuild, who's going to be their new head coach? Maybe it'll be Wes Unseld Jr. for a couple of years. Who knows? I don't think Billy Donovan is going to stick around, so I think he's going to step down at the end of this year. So who's going to be their next coach for the next 2 or 3 years? Well, while the Bulls will go through this transition, and who's going to take this job? I still stand on my opinion that it's going to be some young up-and-coming executive trying to get this ship, SHIP, back on track, and so they can set up for the experienced guy to take it over the next few years. So that's my expectations of this Bulls team. It was a little bit long overdue. I know some people said this move should have been made at least at the end of last year. But despite the timetable, I'm glad it's happening now. It's just the long road starts right now.
It's going to be very interesting, though, to see, because whoever comes in, it's going to be a rebuild for the next couple of years. I know Bulls fans have been lobbying for it. And look, you got what you wanted. So we just see who they get to write the ship. I know Rob Pelinka's name is being. We talked about it earlier. Of course, I know also Mike Dunleavy Jr. Now Bob Myers, I wonder he's kind of dismissive, but I wonder now that AK and Eversley are gone, does he say, okay, you know what? All right, Mr. Reinsdorf, kid, okay, talk to me. Am I going to get full control? Because he said that's what he wants if he's able to go to Chicago. He wants full control. So it's going to be very interesting. We'll see if this becomes like a stepping stone, like you said, or could this be a destination, spot? So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's going to be the other $1 million question, whether it's Bob Myers or something else, a guy that's more experienced. Are you going to give me full control without you meddling in my business? Or will they have the same structure like they did with now ex-GM Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas? That's going to be the other $1 million question there. Will they have two or three guys doing the job, or will they have one guy with full control? We'll see. Because I think, like you said, whether it's Bob Myers or somebody else who has the experience, they want to have full control. Will the Reinsdorfs, in particular, Michael Reinsdorf, Jerry's son, who runs the team now, will Michael be apprehensive to give an experienced guy full control? Because if a new guy that's looking to come up and run this team for his or her next stepping stone to an NBA job, I don't know if you want to give them full control because they haven't been in a position like that before, especially with a major market team like Chicago. So with an experienced person, they want full control. With a new person, they may want it, but you don't have as much experience. So I don't think it'll be a good idea to give a new person full control of the franchise. So the Bulls will have some tough decisions to make.
Now, speaking of the Reinsdorfs, Jerry Reinsdorf's other team, the White Sox, we didn't talk about this, and every Reinsdorf's going to do it now. This news actually just came up. Yeah, I know you were at Sox Park. August 8th, Ozzie again will have his number 13 jersey retired before their series against the Guardians. Of course, he managed the White Sox to the 05 World Series. He also played 13 seasons with the team from 85 to 97. He'll be the first manager and the 13th person in the franchise history to have his number retired. And you saw Scott Podsednik, broke the news to Ozzie. Of course, his wife was there, of course, on CHSN, and also everyone was there as well. I know you heard the news through the PA system as well when this news came about. And to me, this is it's about damn time. I thought they would have done this already, but yes. yeah, better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, and as I said last year, during the day after the Ozzie game bobblehead giveaway during the celebration of the 125 history of the White Sox franchise, we know they brought Ozzie and his family out for him to throw the first pitch. I said right there, the White Sox should have said in a surprise, well, your number is going to be retired next year. They didn't do that, but like you said, it's better late than never. Like you said, I was there, and the crowd was in an uproar, giving Ozzie again, and rightfully so, a standing ovation. You could tell that he was truly shocked and surprised by it, and a great job by Scott Podsednik. He almost gave it away before he read the actual statement, looking at Ozzie and Chuck Garfien, pre- and post-game host from CHSN. But, Scott did his job, and Ozzie was truly surprised. You could tell that with him, especially being in his, I believe he's not 61, he'll be 61, excuse me, later on this year. As I told you, I had a chance to meet him a couple of times the last couple of years. He's a very kind man. He's a very passionate man, and it's all about family and being around his family, especially around his grandkids. Had a chance to meet his son last year, Ozzie Jr. He's an awesome person, and for him, it's all about family at his point at this stage of his life. And he said to the media following Friday's game that he wants his kid, not just his kids, but his grandkids, to know that he is an integral part for this White Sox organization, not just from the championship you talked about a moment ago, but his impact not only on the field but off the field, representing the White Sox. He belongs up there with the likes of Paul Konerko, Louis Aparicio, Frank Thomas, and Billy Pierce, and some of the other numbers that are retired for the White Sox.
He was speechless.
Yeah.
you'll never see Ozzie speechless ever. So the fact
that was not fake, folks. That was real.
Yes, that was realistic. So congrats to Ozzie. This was long overdue.
Mhm.
I've told you, Sid. Ozzie was one of my favorite players growing up in those '90s White Sox squads. And look, I know his style. I know rubs the folks the wrong way, but look, I mean, they got it done. So good for Ozzie. Long overdue. And look, can't wait for August 8th. And as of course, at the beginning of that. With that Cleveland series. Now, speaking of this current White Sox squad, tomorrow night's game between the White Sox and the Orioles has been rescheduled to 2:10 on Tuesday because of the cold temperatures. It'll be supposed to be a cold snap later on tomorrow, so that's why they moved the game up to 2:10 for cold weather. So if you have tickets for that game for tomorrow night, I don't know what to tell y'all. If y'all have to go to work or something like that tomorrow afternoon, but sorry, folks.
Remember, LaKeena, I think this was in 97 or 98. Remember, Ryan Starr canceled. Actually, it was moved actually, but remember he postponed the game. I believe it was on a Friday night, if I remember. It was 97 or 98 because it was a Bulls playoff game, which was smart, but it was because of cold temperatures. It wasn't that cold out, but he decided to postpone the White Sox home game because the Bulls were on. You can't make this stuff up, people.
Yeah, exactly. Here, listen to Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago. LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown with you in our Sports Potpourri segment here on Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago here. Shout out to the UCLA women's hoops team. They dominated South Carolina yesterday to win. Look, this is actually their 126th national championship. This is actually their first in women's college hoops. I know that's weird, right? But yeah, 79-51. Easily over South Carolina. All 5 stars were in double figures for the Seiya laden squad, of course, led by Gabrielle Yaquez. She had 21 points, 14 points for Lauren Betts. Gianna Neekins had 15 points as well. Like I said, all 5 stars were double figures for UCLA. And to their credit, though, South Carolina couldn't get it going. They were 2 for 15 from 3. And it was just unfortunate. Raven Johnson, only 3 points. Tough way for her to go out in her career at South Carolina. But Corey Close, she's been in the game for a long time. She's been at that school a long time, 15 years. She's actually been around the school because one of her first coaching mentors was, of course, the late great John Wooden, and she kind of modeled her style after him with the coaching. When she started coaching, she went to Florida State, had a little bit of success there, came back to UCLA. And to the UCLA, to their credit, I mean, if you know the history of the women's basketball program at UCLA, they really didn't have any, unfortunately. They went to a couple of tournaments back in the 90s, but they were kind of dormant the last 10 years after that. It wasn't until Corey Close took over, and of course, so they started building, and now finally they're national champions.
Yeah, remember we had our good friend Maggie Hintrich on from Yahoo Sports Zone last year on this program around this time. We were talking about Miss Lauren Best. She's that chick, respectfully, I say that. She's definitely going to be a force in the WNBA. We'll talk about more about the WNBA coming up because they had a big trade occurred just right before we went on the air. But getting back to Lauren Betts and UCLA, I had a chance to catch the highlights of this game. You mentioned they were dominant from start to finish. South Carolina couldn't hit their shots. The Bruins were banging the boards, and I think that was a difference between UCLA winning and losing. As we talk about all the time, it's the intangibles, getting those 50-50 balls, getting those key rebounds, getting those blocks, and getting those offensive rebounds. And UCLA did that from start to finish.
Yeah, like I said, it was all UCLA. You got all the way back to the old AIW. That was the American International American Women's Association. That was all the way back in 1978. That was actually the last title that they won. There was no NCAA back then. And like I said, they've been to they went to a tournament a few times in their history. Back in the late 80s and early 90s once the tournament expanded. But like I said, they're really kind of dormant for many years. So but yeah, I mean, it wasn't until Coach Close took over and they started kind of getting it going. They're going to NCAA tournaments consistently and now win a national championship. And good for good, like I said, good for Lauren Betts. Like I said, she's been very upfront about some of the issues she goes through with anxiety and mental health, and she's a very big advocate for that. She wins most outstanding player for that one. Also, Gabriel Jaquez, who, if you know her brothers, one of them, Jaime Jaquez, of course, he led UCLA to the Final Four back in the 21 when they had the COVID Final Four, as they call it. Also, Charlize Laguerre Walker. And of course, the three of them, we talked a little bit about it about earlier last month that they did that dance with the UCLA Palm Squad. They actually did it. They actually replicated that after they won the championship. So that was an ultimate victory dance. Also, of course, Kiki Rice. Of course, I think her boyfriend's one of the I forgot Cason Wallace. He's on the Thunder. So they've been together a long time. So all like them and a couple other seniors. Good for that group of seniors to go out national champions. So congrats to UCLA and Corey Close. And look, I mean, UCLA I think has really been really good. Now we'll see what happens next year because of course you got Judy Watkins. She's going to be back from that ACL surgery. A lot is expected of her. They got a big recruiting class coming back for USC. SC actually did pretty well without her. They all the way back. They got to the second round. Of course, they got blown up by UConn, but a lot's going to be expected for them next year. And also Don Staley, of course, classy in defeat. So.
Yeah, speaking of Don Staley, what you think about that exchange between her and head coach Gene Amorella from UConn last Friday? Dawn Staley, I know she's one tough cookie. I guess she's from Philadelphia and she's been through it all, both on and off the court and throughout her personal life. But a lot of people are taking to her side. Everybody thought that she started the quote unquote beef at the end of the handshake line, but whatever that Gino said really got under her skin.
Yeah, I guess he was saying that one of his players. I don't think it was Sarah Strong. Well, I think it was one of his other players. I guess she got her jersey torn, but apparently there was a video that showed that her old jersey got torn. Like she tugged it and it tore. And I think this is the first time. Like I said, South Carolina they should just pummel UConn. This is the first time that UConn had been pushed all season long, and I guess they didn't know how to handle it. So he didn't know how to handle it either. So I think that's how that whole thing started. I know it's just I know he tried to that apology wasn't really an apology because he didn't say Don's Coach Staley's name by name, so that part was just kind of silly. But yeah, that's the whole situation was just dumb. But yeah, what more can you say?
Yeah. You listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. Seiya, LaKeena here with you. We still have a few minutes left before we close it out with this special edition of Old School TV Monday, keeping with women's basketball. Let's transition over to there was a big trade that took place right before we got on air, LaKeena. Angel Reese is now a member of the Atlanta Dream.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about this when all this sort of came out about Reese and everything that happened with the Sky. She was the trade to the Dream, for 2 first-round picks. The second round, I think one's a first-round pick, 2 first-round picks and a second rounder for next year's draft. But shout out to Taylor Hooks, of course, a Chicagoan. Of course, she does great stuff with the NBA coverage for Prime Video. She was the person that broke the story. Unfortunately, look, if you know the Dream's history, they actually are a pretty solid squad. I'm talking about the Atlanta Dream. And it's gonna be a very low draft pick. I'm all gonna say. You're not gonna get a top 10 or top 15 draft pick, so that's not gonna happen this year anyway. But we know that if you know the history, you saw what happened, and I know I've seen some folks on Twitter saying that maybe, unfortunately, Connecticut lost their franchise to they're going to Houston. They got the Houston going back to Houston, and so it's going back to the old Comets, but. Look, I think no one should be surprised by this. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, we talked about the Sky as a franchise over the last several years. Even with them winning that WNBA title in 2021, they brought Candace Parker, the hometown girl, back home to accomplish that. Horny fans salute. You correct me if I'm wrong, but just some of the other stars that they had on their team over the last decade or so. It's just been one bad thing after another, and the Sky franchise, they cannot blame no one but themselves. I know they got Carmela Cardoso. I'm assuming she's still on the squad, but everybody else is like a who's who. You saw what happened. They fired Teresa Witherspoon after the first year a couple years ago when she was the head coach there. So a lot of bad things have gone on for the Sky franchise. Minus that 2021 championship is no fault but their own.
Yeah, I think Sylvia Fowles, Kalia Copper, who was the MVP of that WNBA championship, and among I think there are a few others who were traded or were let go. So you wonder if it's the Sky, the organization themselves that's the problem. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if attendance drops at the over at the arena this year. I know they're opening a new practice facility out there at Bedford Park, but in a couple of years. But if you're Juju Watkins, if you come out after next season, I know she's probably gonna go number one. I wouldn't, especially if the Sky do end up getting that number one pick next year. I would say if you get one more year of eligibility, look, you would have 1 year of eligibility because you didn't play all this season, so you would have 2 years left. Yeah. So if you're Juju Watkins, I would say just stay there at SC if you do win, you'll get a chance to win a championship.
Yeah. Smart people in her corner are telling her not to go to Chicago. Like you said, the Sky gets the number one pick. Yeah, she can go back after next year because she missed all of this year. So yeah, so she can go back. So there'll be another problem for the Chicago Sky. But thank goodness we don't work for them, so that's not our issue. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Seiya LaKeena here with you. Hockey, real quick, LaKeena. The Hawks on their West Coast road trip. They lost to the Seattle Kraken on Saturday by the score of 4-2. They played the San Jose Sharks tonight. Of course, the Hawks are 28, 35, and 14. They're out of the playoff mix. They're just wrapping up their they're starting to wrap up the rest of their season. They have to finish strong. And I think, as we said before, we'll say it again, that this offseason is important for Hawks GM Kyle Davidson this summer because you've seen what Connor Bedard can be after being injured, missing half of last year in his second year. His third year, he's very much improved. You got Tyler Perduzzi. He has Spencer Knight in net, even though his goals per game average has dropped to barely above 90% now. You have to get some scoring veterans in here to support Connor Bedard on the top line. If you could do that, maybe get a veteran defenseman, and I think this Hawks team will be primed and ready to contend for a playoff spot next year. What say you?
Yeah, I think you got to get a couple of veteran guys to come in and look. I think the nucleus is there. You've got Nazar, you've got Bertuzzi, of course, you got Bedard as well. I think you found your goalie too. I think if you could get like maybe a couple of mid-level guys, or perhaps maybe a veteran that won't mind, building themselves up. I think this is definitely a huge. Look, we've been saying this for the last couple of years, but I think this year is definitely a huge offseason for Kyle Davidson. So, like I said, the Blackhawks, they play the Sharks. They got about 4 games left, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, I want to give a couple of shout-outs for a couple of teams. Buffalo Sabres are going back to the playoffs for the first time in 15 years. They clinched a playoff spot. Look, we know the story of that franchise, and look, they've gone through it the last few years, especially, and to get back into the playoff chase, we talked about it this year, Sid, and hopefully they can do some damage there. We'll talk about that as we get closer and closer to the playoffs in the NHL, the Stanley Cup, but also too, there will be no three-peats. Oh no. The Florida Panthers were eliminated from the playoff contention. They're the only team for the 4 major sports this century to win back-to-back titles, but then miss the playoffs the following season. Of course, the other 2 to do that prior to that were, of course, for the Bulls. The first three-peat, of course, Jordan retired after that. And, of course, the Broncos, I should say, they went back-to-back, and they missed the playoffs in 99 following John Elway's retirement. So, no three-peat for the Panthers this season.
Yeah, the Panthers lost a couple of key people due to injuries and free agency over the summer, and that's why they couldn't make an honest attempt at 3 people. For Buffalo, we all know professionally that's a 2-team sports town. They love the Buffalo Bills, who open up their new football stadium in the fall, but they really love their hockey. They've been a hockey town ever since their inception back in the 70s when the NHL expanded. So you have some great, passionate, hard-nosed, die-hard hockey fans there in Buffalo, New York. So they have made the playoffs since the Blackhawks won their first Stanley Cup the year after the Blackhawks won their first Stanley Cup. I think it was 2011 the last time. If,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong. They made Buffalo made the playoffs, so they made it one more time. That was after the first year that the Hawks won their Stanley Cup. So it's been a long time coming. Let's see. And I know that place is going to be rocking once the playoffs start, and so we'll see what happens once the Stanley Cup playoffs start. Because the NHL, we talk about the big market teams all the time with New York, LA, and Chicago, and some of the original six like Toronto and Montreal. But the NHL is much better served with Buffalo being in the playoffs. It's about damn time.
Mm. And the Islanders made a coaching change. Well, they're actually right there to think of it to get one of the last wild card spots in the NHL playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Can't make
Go
this
figure.
stuff up, folks. Yeah, can't make this stuff up, folks. But yeah, jeez. Yeah, Patrick Waugh is gone, and boy, and of course Pete DeBoer, he's back. He's with the Islanders for the rest of the season and 3 more seasons. So we'll see if he can lead them to the playoffs. On the flip side for the Eastern Conference, well, still a lot to be decided. I know Edmonton, they're right there. Anaheim's right there too in the Pacific Division. The Preds and the Kings looks like it's gonna be a battle between those two for that last playoff spot in the West, that last wild card spot. So, lots to be decided in the NHL for their playoff chase.
All right. Around this time, we usually wrap up the Monday edition of Second City Sports. So celebrating old school TV classic or special from back in the day. We're going to celebrate March Madness tonight with a special edition of Old School TV Monday. LaKeena actually brought this up in the chat. What were some of your best championship final games in men's college basketball for March Madness? I'm sure she's going to mention one of them, but I'll let you have the floor first, young lady.
Okay, well, we'll do from 22. Of course, Kansas coming back from they were down, I think, 15 against North Carolina. They came back and won it. That was on TBS, ironically. So that was probably one of the more, if you want to go more recent with the championship games. Of course, the anniversary of this was just passed a couple of days ago. Of course, in 2016, Villanova beating North Carolina via buzzer beater from Mr. Jenkins from Ryan Archdiacono, of course, with the pass. They said they practiced that multiple times all season long. Of course, that was also, last year too was actually pretty good too, between especially that last year. We talked about it last year, but between Florida and Houston, that last year, especially that great stand by Florida to get their third. Of course, the back-to-back Florida titles, even though the games weren't very good, but I think the first one where Florida kind of came out of not nowhere, but they were unranked, and of course they came and won the national championship. Kind of surprised a lot of people. Let's see here. I'm thinking here. Well, of course, poor Gordon Hayward. The anniversary that just passed as well. When Duke played Butler, not the prettiest national championship game, obviously.
Oh no, that was ugly.
That was ugly, but the fact that it was this close, I know Gordon Hayward, God bless him. He's kind of laughed about it over the years. I don't see how, but he's laughed about it. But if that had went in, Lord knows what would have happened there after that. Let's see what's another really, really good one from back in the day. The 99, of course, UConn. That's when they won their first championship. They beat Duke in an upset, which is weird because they're the number 1 overall seed. I still say that's weird to say, but whatever. But that was a good one. So what are some of your favorites?
Of course, one of my top 2 college basketball games that I've ever watched, 1991. It wasn't a championship game, but I'll give it some love. The national semifinal between Duke and UNLV. Of course, UNLV came in undefeated all season long. Of course, this is before Duke became the hated team in the United States. They upset UCLA, UNLV rather, in all art Indianapolis in overtime in that national semifinal. Of course, now the championship games, 1999, Duke and UConn. Of course, Elton Brand, no one in Chicago knew that we were watching a former Bull. We know what happened with him, but we'll talk about behind the scenes, but I digress. But Duke was heavily favored in that game. UConn with Rip Hamilton, Ricky Moore, Jake Voskuhl. I believe he was a former no, he didn't play for the Bulls. He played for Phoenix.
No, he didn't play for the Bulls. Phoenix, yeah.
Khalid El-Amin, who ended up playing for the Bulls, he was on their team as well. They beat Duke in Tampa in 1999, of course. in 2000 with Mateen Cleaves and Michigan State.
Mhm.
Michigan State, they won that title. 2002, Maryland and Indiana.
Mhm.
Of course, Mike Davis, who took over for the now late great Bobby Knight, he led Indiana to the Final Four, to the championship game. Of course, Maryland took over. Lonnie Baxter, a number of former NBA player,
Mhm.
one-time Chicago Bull. Gary Williams did a nice job with that squad. Of course, 2003 with Carmelo Anthony with Syracuse versus Kansas. I keep one on that block with against
Yes.
Kurt Heinrich, another future Chicago Bull to preserve the title in that game. And of course, 2008 Kansas versus Memphis. Of course, Chicago's
Mhm.
very own Derrick Rose, aka D Rose. He missed a free throw. Mario Chalmers would hit the 3-pointer to send it to overtime before Kansas won the national championship in the extra session.
I'll go like that Maryland Indiana was actually a pretty entertaining game. But like I said, just too much. Juan Dixon, C. Francis. I mean, they were the winningest. Still, I think they're still the winningest duo in Maryland history. Of course, they were determined not to. They wanted to win that. They wanted to leave champions. Michigan State, like I said, Michigan State. That was actually the last time the Big Ten squad had won on the men's side. We'll see if Michigan can break that streak tonight. The 97, remember that one? Arizona with Miles Simon and that group. Mike Bibby was there as well. And also, I believe Gilbert Arenas was on that team too. If I'm not mistaken, I might have him missed over the 01 championship, which Richard Jefferson doesn't want to talk about that one. But you see, Mike Bibby was on. Yep. That was a good one too. They forced overtime. That was kind of an upset, if you will. Them beating that. Arkansas beating
Stanley,
Duke.
can you repeat that last part?
What? Which one? Oh, sorry. I think my mic went out. The 0-1 with Duke in Arizona. I know Richard Jefferson still is pissed about that one. He's still pissed about that. He was still his podcast.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't even mention Duke. So yeah, that's it. 94 Arkansas and Duke. Of course, Scotty Thurman's 3-pointer. That propelled Arkansas. That ended up being their only national title in men's hoops. 88, you want to go old school. The 88 one with Larry Brown beating. I know Stacey King doesn't like to talk about this game either because he played for Oklahoma, but I gotta mention this. Sorry, Stacey, love you, but Danny May, Day and the Miracles. They called that squad. They were I think they were a 7 seed. They beat Oklahoma. They were the number 1 seed. If you want to go old school, Ekpenny, he'll talk about it too. Villanova, they won in the first national championship, beating Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which, if you look back on hindsight, it's really not that surprising because if you saw their first 2 meetings, especially that second meeting, which I think YouTube actually has that video, that the second meeting between Georgetown and Villanova in '85, because it was on NBC. Georgetown needed overtime to beat Villanova. That's why Egg Penny, he'll tell you. Look, you ask him to stay, he'll tell you about it. They weren't afraid to play Georgetown. I know some people thought they should be, but they knew him very well, so that's why they were able to pull off the upset. So,
yeah, don't forget, Georgetown was one of those physical teams back then. A lot of people had a problem with it. RIP John Thompson, head coach Thompson, but yeah. Georgetown, they were very tough back then, so I'm not surprised to hear what Egg Penny, a former NBA player, former Boston Celtic, at one time said about that team in preparation for that game.
So, any other memorable national championship games before we disperse here?
I'm good. So tonight's game hopefully should be, and I think it will be entertaining. Let's see, like you said, Michigan could become the first Big Ten team since Michigan State in 2000 to win a national championship.
All right, on that, of course, you can catch that game on TBS. So, you can catch that on TBS, True TV, and also stream on HBO Max. So, for folks complaining, like I said, it's going to be at 7:50. So, I know the last 20-25 years has been after 8 o'clock. People have been bitching about that. Well, now look, it's before 8. Okay, it's 7:50 Chicago time, so y'all can relax now. On that note, I'm just I gotta say it because folks were bitching about it for the last 15 years. But look, now you got it before 8 this year, so y'all can relax. You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance. Your sport.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live and live in color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15. And as the kids would say, be sure to catch Second City Sports live and live in color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And if you miss any segment, whether it's our NFL picks or if we talk the Bulls, if you missed the breaking news about the Bulls relieving both Arturo's Carter Shows and Mark Eversey of their duties, you can catch that discussion. You can catch it anytime, anywhere on Sports Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels. You can catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellas. I know Sean's probably going to have a lot to say about this when he comes back on air on Wednesday. But you can catch it anytime, anywhere the replays on Sports Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels.
And you know we will provide.
Enjoy tonight's national championship game, the last games of the regular season games of the NBA and NHL, the baseball. I know you got your college baseball and softball going on in full swing, so y'all can fully concentrate on that as well. I know the world's a little bit crazy right now, but don't worry, folks. Look, you got sports to kind of be sort of like your, that escape, if you will. So enjoy that escape. For Sid, I'm the kids with Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Go Sox, holla!